Ladies and gentlemen, when we think about stress, most of us imagine it as something negative, something to be avoided or minimized. We talk about being overwhelmed, anxious, burned out, and certainly chronic, unrelenting stress can have harmful effects on both the mind and body. But what if the most powerful tool we have to manage stress isn't a pill, a supplement, or even meditation, but the way we think about stress itself? This is not philosophy. This is biology. Your brain and body are equipped with deeply intelligent systems designed to respond to threat or pressure. These systems evolved to help you survive, to sharpen your attention, elevate your heart rate, and focus your energy when the stakes are high. That's the stress response. But, and this is critical, the way your body responds to stress is not fixed. It is shaped by your perception. In other words, your mindset literally alters your physiological response to stress. Let's break this down. When you encounter a stressful situation, whether it's a tough conversation, a deadline, or a physical challenge, your brain evaluates the situation. But it's not just evaluating the external conditions. It's evaluating your internal narrative about those conditions. Do you believe this situation is threatening, or do you believe it's manageable? Do you believe you're being attacked, or being challenged to grow? This evaluation happens quickly, often below the level of conscious thought, and it sets off one of two very different biological cascades. If you perceive the stressor as a threat, something that could harm you, that's outside your control, your brain activates the hypothalamic, pituitary, adrenal HPA axis. This results in the release of cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone. Cortisol helps you mobilize energy, but in excess or over time, it damages memory, disrupts sleep, increases inflammation, and even suppresses immune function. It also shrinks parts of the brain like the hippocampus, which is crucial for learning and memory. But if you perceive the stressor as a challenge, a demand that you're capable of meeting, your brain shifts into a more adaptive response. Instead of a cortisol surge, you get a rise in dopamine, norepinephrine, and epinephrine, neurochemicals that heighten focus, increase motivation, and sharpen memory. Your body still experiences arousal, but it's an arousal that primes you for action, not one that paralyzes you with fear. This distinction is vital. It means that two people can be in the exact same situation, say, giving a public speech or preparing for a job interview, and their bodies will respond in entirely different ways depending on how they interpret that situation. One person feels threatened, and their system floods with cortisol, impairing their thinking and reinforcing their anxiety. The other person sees the situation as an opportunity to grow, and their brain supports them with chemicals that enhance performance. Now here's the most powerful part. You can train this response. Just as we can train the body to be stronger and more resilient through exercise, we can train the brain to interpret stress differently. One method is through cognitive reappraisal, a technique grounded in neuroscience and used widely in clinical psychology. This involves consciously reframing how we think about stressors. Instead of saying, "I'm anxious," we say, "I'm activated." Instead of "this is too much," we say, "this is a chance to learn." This isn't about toxic positivity or ignoring real difficulties. It's about reclaiming the agency we have over our internal state. It's about realizing that mindset isn't just a mental posture. It's a neurological command center. Studies at Stanford and other research institutions have shown that people trained to see stress as useful, not harmful, had healthier cardiovascular responses, better emotional resilience, and even improved job performance. In some cases, just watching a short video on the benefits of stress before a high-pressure task was enough to change outcomes significantly. That's how powerful mindset is. Of course, this doesn't mean you can or should eliminate all negative feelings around stress. Stress, in many cases, is a signal, but signals can either be warnings or invitations, And the role of mindset is to choose which interpretation serves your growth. Every time you experience stress is a moment where your brain is plastic, capable of change. These moments are windows of neuroplasticity, and the thoughts you choose during those moments become templates for how your brain will respond in the future. The more you train your brain to interpret stress as something useful, the more your nervous system will begin to respond with energy and clarity instead of fear and shutdown. This is why high performers, athletes, special forces operators, surgeons, CEOs, train not just their skills, but their mental frameworks. They don't just prepare for stress. They shape their mind, set so stress works for them. And this is something all of us can do. Mindset is not fluff. It's a tool. It's a lever. It's a biological amplifier. And in a world that's not getting any less stressful, the ability to shift your internal state may be the most important skill of all. Mindset over everything isn't just a phrase. It's a prescription. Train it like your life depends on it, because in many ways it does. Neuroplasticity is one of the most powerful and transformative concepts in neuroscience. It refers to the brain's incredible ability to adapt and change throughout life, reorganizing its structure and function in response to learning, experience, and even injury. What many people don't realize, however, is that mindset plays a profound role in shaping this process. How you think, your beliefs about your own abilities, your view of challenges, and your perception of learning directly influences the brain's capacity for plasticity. In essence, your mindset can either facilitate or hinder the brain's ability to adapt and grow. When we talk about mindset, we are really referring to a mental framework that guides our responses to the world around us. This framework is shaped by our thoughts, beliefs, and attitudes. It's important to understand that mindset isn't just a passive mental state. It's an active driver of how our brain interacts with the environment and learns new information. In other words, your mindset doesn't just reflect your brain's potential for change. It creates the conditions for that change to happen. A powerful example of how mindset influences neuroplasticity comes from the work of Dr. Carol Dweck, who pioneered research on the concept of growth mindset. People with a growth mindset believe that their abilities can be developed through effort, practice, and learning. In contrast, those with a fixed mindset believe that their abilities are static and unchangeable, that intelligence, talent, or skill is something you are born with, not something you can improve through effort. Studies have shown that people with a growth mindset are more likely to embrace challenges, persist in the face of setbacks, and ultimately perform better in areas like academics, sports, and business. But the key point here is that their belief in the malleability of their own abilities drives their brain's ability to adapt. This belief opens up pathways for learning and encourages the brain to form new neural connections in response to effort and practice. For someone with a growth mindset, the brain views challenges as opportunities for growth rather than as threats to self-esteem or competence. On a neurological level, the brain's capacity for neuroplasticity is heavily influenced by the belief that change is possible. This process is closely tied to dopamine, a neurotransmitter that plays a key role in motivation, reward, and learning. When you approach a task with the belief that your abilities can improve, your brain releases dopamine, which enhances learning and makes it easier for new neural circuits to form. This creates a positive feedback loop where your belief in growth leads to better learning, which in turn reinforces the belief that growth is possible. The more you practice this mindset, the stronger your brain becomes at forming new connections and adapting to new information. Conversely, someone with a fixed mindset might view mistakes or failure as evidence of a lack of ability, rather than as opportunities to learn. This mindset can trigger a stress response, leading to the release of cortisol and other stress hormones. Chronic activation of the stress system, can actually hinder neuroplasticity, making it more difficult for the brain to form new connections and adapt to challenges. Over time, this can lead to a negative cycle where the individual becomes increasingly resistant to change and less open to learning new things. This is why it's so important to cultivate a growth-oriented mindset if you want to maximize your brain's potential for change. The good news is that mindset is trainable. You can actively reframe your thoughts and beliefs about your abilities, challenges, and mistakes. Instead of thinking, "I can't do this," try reframing it as, "I can't do this yet." This simple shift can have a profound impact on your brain's ability to adapt and learn. Over time, the brain becomes more efficient at sculpting new neural pathways, which increases the brain's cognitive flexibility, its ability to adapt to new situations and solve complex problems. Another critical factor in how mindset shapes neuroplasticity is the role of effort. The belief that effort leads to improvement is essential for fostering neuroplasticity. When you engage in a challenging task and put in the effort, your brain responds by strengthening existing neural circuits and forming new ones. The key is persistence. The more you repeat an action or thought, the more entrenched the neural pathways become, and the easier it is to perform that action in the future. The brain learns by repetition, but it also learns by intention. This concept is central to the idea of deliberate practice, a term popularized by psychologist Anders Ericsson. Deliberate practice is the process of engaging in activities that push you just beyond your current abilities, allowing you to stretch and grow. But it's not just about practice, it's about how you approach practice. If you approach a challenge with the mindset that you can improve and grow, your brain is much more likely to form the neural connections necessary to overcome that challenge. However, if you approach practice with the mindset that you are simply reinforcing what you already know, your brain may not be as open to the changes necessary to make real progress. In a sense, your mindset determines the level of engagement and effort you put into learning. And it's this engagement that powers neuroplasticity. Without the belief that change is possible, your brain is less likely to invest energy into creating the necessary neural pathways. But when you believe in your ability to grow, your brain's plasticity is amplified. This idea of neuroplasticity driven by mind that isn't limited to just learning new skills. It extends to emotional and psychological growth as well. If you believe that you can improve your emotional resilience, that belief will actually make it easier for your brain to develop new strategies for managing stress, anxiety, and other emotions. This process, known as emotional plasticity, demonstrates just how interconnected our mindset is with every aspect of our brain's ability to change. In conclusion, the link between mindset and neuroplasticity is a powerful one. How you think about yourself, your abilities, and your challenges doesn't just reflect the brain's current state. It shapes its future. A growth mindset unlocks the brain's potential for change, leading to improved learning, greater emotional resilience, and enhanced cognitive function. The more you practice this mindset, the more adaptable and capable your brain becomes. So, as you move through life and face challenges, remember that your mindset is not just a reflection of who you are. It's the driver of who you can become.